Hey y'all, it's Kalia Monique. My first name's Kalia, my middle name's Monique. It's Kalia Monique. So today I will be discussing some of the books I read that got me out of my reading slump after undergrad. I got this idea for this video because I watched Gab do it from How to Train Your Gavin. He did this video. When I watched his, I had just filmed the updating my book habits video, and in that video I had talked about how undergrad basically demolished my love for nonfiction while also making me want to read nonfiction. Watch that video. I'll have it linked down below and up in the cards as well. After I had filmed that video, I had watched Gab's video of all the books he read that got him out of his slump after uni, and I was like, oh my god, Gab, we're on the same wavelength right now. Same Gab, I would love to discuss the books that got me out of my slump because, again, I was legit in a slump for all of college. I think I maybe read like a few books for pleasure while I was in college, but for the most part, and those books would take me forever to finish. Like, I just was not enjoying reading. In undergrad, I majored in journalism and minored in criminal justice. So I was either always having to read a lot of current events, or when it came to like my minor, having to read a lot of nonfiction that dealt with very serious topics. And my brain hurt. Honestly, I was just overexerting my brain, just doing a lot of strenuous coursework that dealt with very serious topics. I can remember very much being like, I just need to sit in my bed and watch Netflix for hours. Like, I don't want to think. I don't want to do this. No, I cannot do this. I was also working with my school Center for Community Engagement in a elementary school, and part of that was participating in a lot of equity trainings. And so I was just learning about how unfair and unjust our school system is, while also being surrounded by these amazing children. All that to say, earlier this year in February was when I got out of my slump. This video is a homage to the books that got me out of my slump. I do have a few, I would say I have like two of the books that I had read right out of my slump, but for the main part, these books either I read right out of my slump and really enjoyed, or I read them at a time when I really needed them, or just basically books that restored my faith in reading and my joy in the subject. Because, you know, when you read a lot, there are times when you're like, I'm just tired. Basically, everything that I picked out helped me to restore my faith and my love for reading, and to restore my passion to continue on with my reading. Even to an extent, inspired me to start this channel and wanting to talk more about books because they really are valuable to my life. And so, shout out to Gab from How to Train Your Gavin for doing his video and inspiring me to do the same. I will have his video linked down below. And yes, friends, I believe that is all. Let's go ahead and get into this video. Okay, so first and foremost, I didn't know how to organize this video at all. I do believe Gab did all the books that initially got him out of his slump. Those didn't really hold up for me. So I'm doing more. So yes, the books that got me out of my reading slump after undergrad, but also the ones that restored my faith in reading every time I feel like I'm about to head back into a slump. Honestly, at the moment, I feel like I'm in a period of my reading where I'm in in recovery from a slump. Like, I feel like this whole year is me still being in recovery from said slump, because 4 years, y'all. I went my whole life, 18 years of my life, because senior year I was 18. I went 18 years of my life going hard in the paint for reading. I mean, now that I think about it, I did not read for those full 18 years because I didn't know how. But the point is, I made it to 18 years. I made it through high school and was still reading. Despite the fact that I had a very tough course load in high school, I still was reading a ton. And then it was college that had me like, nah, I don't want no part of this. Honestly, this whole year has kind of felt like being in recovery from a reading slump. That sounds so dramatic, but honestly, that's how it feels to me. And so, although not all of these books were books I had read right out of coming out of my slump, they did restore my faith in reading. I do have them kind of in categories. And I don't even think my categories make sense. Category 1 is going to be all about the books that just bring me happiness. Like, I'm just happy when I see them. These books brought me out of my slump because they just bring me happiness. And they may not seem like this great literary masterpiece. They may not seem that great to you. Like, you honestly might hate these books. And you know what? That I'm fine with that, because they just brought me joy. So the very first book I have here is actually the very first book I read that got me out of my slump. That book is, of course, A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I really enjoyed the ACOTAR series when I read it. I was going to say when it came out. I didn't read it when it came out. I read it after A Court and Frost and Starlight. That is when that book came out, is when I started the series, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I binged that whole series in like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. And yeah, I was very surprised to find out that A Court of Silver Flames had been published earlier this year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, this book is a chunker. This book is nearly 800 pages. Look at, I even annotated it. Really? Did I? Oh, I just yelled. And I wrote in it. Wow. I mean, not a lot. Most of it is just me marking the page. But yeah, I didn't know that I was that into tabbing at the moment. But anyways, yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I would tell you the synopsis of this, except it is literally the 4th book in the series, not counting the novella. So the ACOTAR series follows Farah. I forgot their last name. But the ACOTAR series follows Farah in her journeys as she is a human that has entered the fairy lands after she accidentally kills a wolf that turns out to be Fae, and she gets kidnapped by a High Lord and is taken to the fairy lands. I don't know how to mind you, I read these years ago. The first book is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and then from there Sarah J. Maas did her own thing, and the books are just like the journey as Farah becomes a boss bitch and so on and so forth. I think that's all I can say without spoiling it, because I will say the first book is totally different than the rest of the series. This book is the first book in a new turnaround in the series, in which each book from now on will follow a different character, a different couple, I believe. A Court of Silver Flames follows Nesta, who is Farah's oldest sister, and Cassian and their story. Mostly Nesta's story. It features found family. It totally has like girl power and amazingness. I just truly enjoyed this story. I can't imagine. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the series, if I'm being honest, because Nesta was always my favorite character. Or not always, but Nesta was my favorite character. And if I'm not going to get Nesta, I don't really want it. Sorry. I'm sure that is an unpopular opinion. Not a lot of people like Nesta. I understand that, but I love her. And yeah, I just remember the series happening, and I've been being like, where's Nesta? Can I get more Nesta, please? And then she would say something horrible, and I'd be like, girl, shh, shh, shh. The next book that goes within this category of a book that just brought me joy, and that is Anna K. Oh, not away. Anna K. and Jesus Christ. Anna K. Away. I love these books. Listen. If you don't like these books, I understand. It's okay. I love it. I love them with my whole heart. I love that these books very much read to me like a TV show. Jenny Lee is actually a television writer. It very much reads like a television show to me. Like, it felt like I was reading Rich People Nonsense. It felt like I was watching a show from Freeform or something. Like, it was so great. And I read this very fast. I believe, yeah, totally. I actually listened to the audiobook for Anna K. The audiobook made it feel like Gossip Girl. Like, it was so great. And then I could not wait for the audiobook to become available at my library. And I just read Anna K away, which is why this one is slightly tabbed and this one is not. I thoroughly enjoyed these books with my whole heart. I definitely enjoyed Anna K more. I think I gave this a 5-star rating. I think I gave this a 4.5. Honestly, out of happiness sake, it's very likely that I rated this a 5-star. It is not a 5-star book at all. I will give it 4 stars, and that is still being very generous, simply because I love the rich people nonsense that this book follows. But Anna K is an Anna Karenina retelling with a Korean female lead, so shout out to that. Jenny Lee is actually Korean and she loves the story of Anna Karenina, so she was inspired to retell the story with a main character that looks a bit like her, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. Anna K is actually half Korean, and I really enjoyed the journey she kind of went through in Anna K Away, in which she kind of explored her Korean side and like her Korean identity a bit more. I really enjoyed reading about that. But yeah, this whole series just reads like Gossip Girl. It reads like a TV show, something from Freeform. It is amazing. The next books that I have here are actually a part of a series. I want to read the next book so bad, and the fact that people have read the next book makes me angry because it's not out in my country and I want my copies to match. I'm upset. I'm mad. I'm angry. I don't like this. I'm not mad and I'm not angry. That was dramatic. But I do not like this. I do not like that I have to wait and there are people that have already read it. Like, it really hurts my feelings. But you know what doesn't hurt my feelings? This amazing series, because I love it so much. Yeah, this series just brought me joy, and that is the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. This is actually a graphic novel series, and it brings me joy because, hello, first of all, Charlie and Nick, come on, love them with my whole heart. They're so cute. They are so cute. These definitely had restored my joy in other formats of writing and other formats of storytelling. The Heartstopper series follows Nick and Charlie. Yes. So Charlie is just a soft, kind-hearted young man who unfortunately was outed to his school the year prior to the events that take place in the first Heartstopper book. Due to Charlie being outed, he suffered a lot of bullying, a lot of harassment from his peers, those assholes at his school, and this went on for a year. It greatly impacted his mental health. Fast forward to a year later, Charlie meets Nick in one of their classes that they share together, and they kind of form this friendship and this bond, and they just become really close. And all of a sudden, Charlie finds himself having feelings for his new friend Nick, who is a rugby player, and is upset with himself because he's like, why are you sitting here falling for this straight boy? In the meantime, Nick, who has been all about rugby, who has had a past girlfriend and has always liked girls his whole life, is starting to feel new feelings for his friend Charlie, and he is trying to discover what those feelings are and what they consist of. The whole series follows Nick and Charlie in their relationship, where it develops and where it goes on and so forth, while also including their friends and their relationships. It's a great time in these streets. Okay, I thoroughly enjoyed this series. Honestly, yes, all the cuddles, all the feels, all the happiness. Definitely recommend the Heartstopper series. If you don't like the Heartstopper series, there's genuinely something wrong with you. I'm just saying. The next category I have here actually only has 2 books, and these books I think are just... These books restored my faith in reading because they brought me something I wasn't really looking for. They cover more serious topics, kind of. These books were valuable to me, and I really enjoyed them. They got me out of my slump just because, like, I just find these books very important, and I don't know if I would reread these books ever, but they're very valuable to me and, like, important in my reading experience. I really enjoyed reading them, but also found myself having to take breaks while reading them because they would cover like serious topics, and my feelings were feeling hard. The first book in this category goes out to Miss Tiffany D. Jackson. Monday's Not Coming. I love this book with my whole heart. I liked it so much. What can I say? Monday's Not Coming follows Claudia as she tries to uncover the secrets surrounding her friend Monday, who has recently gone missing, and no one around her, not even the adults, seem to care. And Claudia is trying to figure out what happened to her friend Monday. Throughout this book, it is such an amazing book. That plot twist was not expecting. I am shooketh. But I do recommend checking out the trigger warnings for this book because it covers serious topics. I will have a list of them down below. Please give me time. It takes me a minute to write out the description and everything. But I will have some of the trigger warnings that I can think of down below. It was one of the first books that I had read coming out of college that covered a serious topic that I found very valuable, and it just like, it shocked me. It shocked my senses. Like, I was just like, I can't read anything else right now. I just need to sit on what I just read, and it was so valuable and important to me. And so yeah, definitely recommend this book. Love it. Another book that fits within this category of being important to me due to the literary excellence that it provides is Clara and the Sun. So yeah, I read this book this month, and it was one of those books that I wanted to take my dear time with. Like, it's a book I didn't want to read because I didn't want to finish it. Does that make sense? Literally in this book, I was like, I don't want to read it because I don't want it to end. Or there'd be like a part and I'd be like, something sad is about to happen, and I don't want to read that sad thing. And can you see how much I annotated this book? Like, wow. But I love this book so much. I don't even know how to formulate how much I love this book because I just love it. Like I said, I loved it so much I didn't want it to end. I knew sad things were coming, and I didn't want to read the sad things because I was actually very emotionally involved in many of the characters. Listen, I loved Clara with my whole heart. Clara. Oh my God, I love this AI with my whole world. Okay, so Clara and the Sun follows Clara, who is an artificial friend, and artificial friends are AIs that are primarily targeted towards children to be a friend to your child. Did y'all ever have those robot pet thingies that, like, okay, first of all, I had a robot dog that looked like a robot and it played music. And like dance to the beat of the music. But then I also had a robot dog that legit looked like a dog. It was like furry, and I would turn on the thing and it would like, oh my God, I had another robot dog too that looked like a robot, and this one ate like mechanical food. Like, I had a mechanical bone for him that I wonder where he is, because that dog brought me a lot of joy as a child. Oh, damn. Now I'm thinking of that dog like Clara, and I feel bad. But the dog that I was really thinking of was the one that like had fur. My pet friend, something. I know it ended in pet. But it was like furry, and yeah, I would just turn it on and it would like act like an actual dog because I wasn't allowed to have a dog when I was little. And so, yeah, my parents brought me apparently multiple robot dogs, one of which actually looked like a dog. And yeah, it would, like, when it would turn on, it would like do dog things, and I would feel like I was playing with a dog. I think I could play fetch with the thing. Huh. Okay. Yeah, it like ate, I gave it treats and stuff. Yeah. It is what it is. I don't remember what those things are called, and maybe I'll look it up and like put a picture here, but the point is that is the closest example to our current day life that I can think of that would be similar to Clara, except Clara was a human. Like, she wasn't a human, but she was essentially a robotic friend for children. So you start off the book with Clara in the store hoping to be bought and hoping to find her friend that will purchase her and take her home with her, because that is what Clara was made to do, to be the perfect friend for whatever little boy or girl comes to get her. One day when Clara is in the window of the store, she meets a young girl named Josie. Clara and Josie develop a bond, and this book essentially follows Clara as she develops this friendship with Josie and all the time that they spent with one another. And just this book, the whole purpose of this book is to provide a commentary on human existence, which apparently is much of what Kazuo Ishiguro does in his books, but reading it from Clara's perspective was so great for me. I believe I ended up giving this book a 4.5. I love this book. Maybe even a 4-star. I don't remember. But I love this book because it just was so valuable to me. The way grief was dealt with in this book kind of impacted me a lot more than I was expecting. Clara is an AI, and so technically, as Josie's mom points out, technically she doesn't have emotion. She's able to simulate emotions, and as far as Clara is concerned, she is actually feeling these emotions. However, there was often times in this book where Clara wasn't aware that she was feeling things. For example, grief. And the way Clara experienced grief reminded me very similarly to how I experienced grief when my grandmother had passed away, when my dad's mom had passed away. Basically, Clara looks to the sun as a deity and as a god. And so there's this point in which she is talking to the sun, asking the sun to essentially fulfill this wish for her. And this is me trying to talk without spoiling the book for you, but there's a point where Clara is speaking to the sun to ask for something, and when I tell you, it felt verbatim to the prayers I had when my grandma was passing away. And so this book hit hard. And yeah, so like I said, that was around the time where I was like, sad things are about to happen and I'm not prepared. I don't want this. I don't want the book to end because I don't want the sad things to happen. And then yeah, this book really took us further into Clara's story than I was expecting. When it got to that part, I just was so sad, and I really, really thoroughly enjoyed this book. I definitely want to read more of Kazuo Ishiguro's work because, my God, Clara and the Sun held my, oh my God, wow. Honestly, I feel like I'm about to cry. I don't know why. I'm an emotional person. I'm discovering that about myself this year. The next category of books that I have here that got me out of my reading slump after undergrad are the books that I felt the most represented and seen in, or at least books that represented an important part of my life through the main characters or something. One of these books provided me this representation when I did not expect it. My early reading experience was definitely filled with a lot of books that did not have a character like me in them. A lot in my early reading experience, there wasn't a lot of characters that felt like me. They did on a surface level of there's this really girly girl that falls in love very fast, or has these crushes, and kind of really fulfilled my romance fantasies and everything. And kind of I saw myself in a lot of characters in my early reading experience, and on a very superficial level, because there was just never that cultural understanding in the books that I was reading. There was never a discussion of anything of value, really. These books really were the first time that I felt very much seen in a book that I was reading, and yeah, they will always be very valuable to me because of that. Yeah, these final three are three of my absolute favorite books, and so I'm going to start with the one that I'm going to speak about the least, because I have literally talked about this book non-stop since I read it. It is in many videos, including my book talk about this book, which I will have linked below and in the cards. And of course, that is Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Yemere. Yeah, y'all know what it's about. Chiamaka and Devon are the only two black kids in their private academy, and all of a sudden both of them are harassed by unknown individual that goes by the name of Aces, and all of a sudden texts are sent out throughout the school that unveil their deepest, darkest secrets. They're basically harassed and go through a lot of discrimination, racism, and just horrible things during this book and in this experience. I love this book. I love this book so much. Specifically with Chiamaka's journey, I saw so much of myself in Chiamaka. Honestly, out of all the books that I picked for this category, which is only 3 of them, this book I was the most represented in this book in Chiamaka's journey. Basically, Chiamaka had just woken up to the fact that there is racism all around her. She's just woken up to the fact that she has had to conform herself and to fit herself into this tiny box just to fit in with the white people that surround her. And she discovered all of this in her senior year of high school, which honestly is quite terrifying for me, because when I tell you that is when I realized, that is when I was starting to wake up to the racism surrounding me, and that is when I started to want to act more. There was racism all around me, and that I had made myself smaller to fit into a box for other people's approval, and honestly for conformity's sake, because it's never fun being the only something in a room or in a school. And so reading Chiamaka's journey really just hit hard and hit home. The next book I felt very represented in is Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi. I love this book for so many reasons. First of all, I read this book in May. I was going through some things in May. I was not reading in May. I was very much in a slump for what felt like the whole month of May. But yeah, I read this during a readathon, and I really needed it. I was going through some mental things at the time. I'm about to cry. Why am I about to cry? But yeah, I was going through some mental health concerns in May, and are you serious, Kalia? Why do I want to cry today? I was going through some mental health concerns in May. It really is this book. Oh, God. I don't know if I can do this. Let me get through these final 2 books, because apparently I really want to cry for some reason. I'm assuming that it's because these last 3 books are the books I felt the most represented in, but yeah, apparently that makes me want to cry, which is understandable considering I went a majority of my life not being seen in books, and then all of a sudden I have this overflow of books that I feel very represented in. So yeah, like I was saying, Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi. I read this in May. I was going through some things in May, and I wasn't reading a lot. I just was in a really, really bad headspace at the time. I just dealt with some things with life. It really felt like May, just things were attacking me. Seeing as how I was in a very bad headspace at the time, I was not taking good care of myself. The only reason that I wanted to get out of that headspace is because I had my older sister's support at the time, and yeah, she really was looking out for me, and she wanted me to get better, and so that made me want to get better. I mean, it's not like she was forcing me to get better, but she wanted me to stop hurting and was very attentive to me at the time. So I wanted to read a book about 2 sisters, and that's what Yolk is about. Yolk is about Jane and her sister June, who used to be very close as young children, but as you get older, you start to argue with your siblings. As they developed more into their personalities, they realized that they were very opposite from each other, and it greatly impacted their relationship. They haven't spoken to each other in a very long time, but June becomes very sick, and Jane finds herself taking care of her sister, or rather just supporting her sister in her journey as her sister deals with her illness. And Jane is actually dealing with some things of her own. While June is going through her health concerns, she is the older sister. She seems to have her life together. She seems a lot more mature than Jane. And then you look at June's life, where she is roommates with her ex-boyfriend or whatever, with her ex something. I just still don't understand what their relationship was prior. But yeah, Jane's life seemingly has no order. She's young. She's like 21 in the book, I believe. No, she's not even. She's 19 in the book, I believe. So yeah, Jane is like 19. She's trying to figure things out. She's kind of a mess. I will gladly say that Jane is a mess. A lot of how she thinks is quite messy. Even when it comes to how she thinks about her sister is quite messy. But Jane herself is going through some things. And Jane is going through her own things. For example, Mary H.K. Choi actually used Yolk as a kind of like therapeutic moment to reflect on her experience with disordered eating. And yeah, you're very much experiencing a character going through an eating disorder and like dysmorphia. And was this difficult to read? Actually, it wasn't difficult to read. I had cried in like very early, very, very early. Like it was like 32 pages in and I had already cried like 3 times. But that's okay, because honestly, the reasons I was crying was because those topics were what was going on with me in May. There was one time when, after June had told Jane that she was sick, that Jane started testing out what it would be like to tell people that she once had a sister, but that sister is gone. And I was just like, as the youngest sibling, with all of my siblings being 10 years plus than me, one day I have anxiety. I've thought about that before, of like, one day I won't have my siblings. God, Clea. And yeah, I'm scared of that. And Jane testing out, telling people that, just reminded me of some of like my anxiety attacks I've had. God, this book. Whew. And then when you're dealing with June's illness of having uterine cancer, June having to deal with the idea of not being able to have children anymore, what that would feel like. Also, the very fact that the illness is cancer in this book, again, was something that had impacted my life in the month of May. So, it was just really... it is definitely a tough book. Clearly, if I were to read this book right now, I would be a ball of heaping tears and I would really struggle through it. But something about the timing of reading this book felt so good. Like, the way that so many of the things that were ailing me in May appeared in this book. And you're just kind of going through those topics with these characters. Like, I was like, wow. Someone else is going through this stuff too. And there's one quote in particular towards the end, and this isn't a spoiler, I swear it's not. There's one part where Jane kind of thinks to herself, no one looks like they're in enough pain. No one looks like how I feel. No one looks like they do the things I do. And that whole month that's what I was feeling. Like, I feel like a lot of my friends actually had gone through some things in May, and we were all just dealing with some mental health issues. But I just kept feeling like, man, I'm so alone right now. In my pain and like what I'm going through, I'm just so alone. And then just having the discussion of how Jane was dealing with her eating habits, and how she kind of was going through that. Like, it just felt very similar to my experiences with eating. And everything. So yeah, I really appreciated this book for finding its way to me at the time that it did, because I really needed to read this at that time. There's some, like, if I had read this book even a week earlier, it would have been too much. If I would have read this book apparently right now, it would have been too much and I would not have been able to finish it. But it was the timing of it all. Reading it at that time was so valuable, and it really provided me with a very therapeutic moment of self-reflection of how I had been treating myself and my body at that time, self-reflection of asking for help, of really leaning on my sister and that not being a problem. And it was just really great. And yeah, I really appreciated this book for finding its way to me at that time, because I really needed it. All right, so final book that I will be discussing is Darius the Great Is Not Okay by Adib Karam. Love this book. This book actually brings me a lot of happiness and joy. I'm not going to cry while describing this book. I actually felt seen in this book by through the way Darius was experiencing his depression. Darius has depression and he lives his life anyways. That's basically it. Darius the Great follows Darius. Darius is mixed race. His mom is Persian and his dad is white. And his parents met while they were in college. And Darius basically has grown up his whole life in Portland and has never really met his mom's side of the family. Due to family concerns, Darius and his family go to Iran, where his mother's side of the family is, and they finally get to meet their grandparents and their whole family, essentially, from their mom's side. So Darius goes to Iran to meet his mom's side of the family, and while he's in Iran, he meets a boy named Sarab, and they develop this really great friendship. It's a great depiction of Darius exploring his racial identity, and how he even refers to himself as a fractional Persian, because he's half Persian and then half white. But which was very interesting to read, of like how Darius had thought of race and how he thought of his race and how it related to him and how it impacted his life. So it was really great to see him feeling as though he's a fractional Persian, and then being surrounded by his family that he saw as like fully Persian, because both their parents are Persian, but also they grew up in Iran. So seeing him explore his racial identity and discuss how he thought of himself when it came to his race was really amazing and really great. But truly, where I felt the most represented in this book is the fact that Darius does have depression, but he never once went through an episode in this book. Like, as his depression definitely affected the way he thought about things. However, that's what depression is. There are literally thousands of people living with depression. Believe it or not, we're not in an episode every single day. Every time you read a book about somebody with depression, it's them just figuring out that they had depression and going through an episode of them being like this really deep, dark place of just sadness and despair. And while Darius's depression definitely gets in the way of some of his thoughts, and are definitely making some of his thoughts more negative than others, he's not in a full-blown episode every single moment. Sometimes he's just feeling more emotions. Like, sometimes his emotions are just a bit more intense, and that is completely fine and completely normal. And so I thoroughly enjoyed the fact, yes. Please read Darius the Great Is Not Okay. I love this book. It brings me joy. It brings me happiness. I love this book so much. I just love the depiction of depression in this book. I will always love this book for that reason. Wow. Look at me. I'm at a happier note. All of a sudden, I feel so much better now. And it's all thanks to you, Darius. So thank you. Darius the Great deserves better. Also, phenomenal read. Love those books. Both of them are equally as important to me. Those are all the books I have for you today. Those are all the books that I read that got me out of my 4-year-long undergrad reading slump. I thank you to these books. Thank you. It was great. I really enjoyed this video. Very weirdly got very emotional, but I'm here. I'm here. I'm good. I'm happy now. We're great. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed my face, my voice, my extraness, go ahead and press that like button down below and press the subscribe button if you would like to see more of me, and press that bell notification if you would like to be notified when I upload. If you would like to comment down below, please let me know what are some books that you have read that got you out of a slump, whether it was the slump you're in out of college or whether you just went through a slump and you read these books to get you out of that. What books do you often go to when you get out of a slump? As always, I'll have the link to all my social down below. If you would like to support this channel further, I will have my Amazon wish list and my coffee down below as well. If there are any videos that you would like to see me do, any videos you would like to see my take on, go ahead and leave those suggestions down below as well. I genuinely, like, I actually think I got everything this time, but I believe that is everything, although I am probably forgetting something because I literally always forget something. But bye guys.